Jack, thank you so much for being here and chatting with me here today. Thank you so much for being a part of the PSA program as a career advisor. And in general, I'd love, for those of you who don't know who Jack is, I feel like I see you all around the community, but in the case you don't, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share a bit about your professional background.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Liz, for inviting me here. And happy birthday to the Pre-Sales Collective, of course. That's very exciting. And yeah, I've been in the pre-sales world for about a decade. And I spent about the same amount of time on the customer side of the table before I started doing that. And so I've spent 20 years of my life either being sold to or trying to sell. And so it's interesting kind of having equal parts on both sides of that. But I've been uh, in a pre-sales leadership role now for the past couple of years, which has also added a different layer, a different perspective on top of that. Both trying to figure out then how do we get better at what we do? How do I make my teams better at what they do? Which is something that that's kind of what at first drew me to the pre-sales collective back when I first even hopped in and started participating was this group of people who were like, oh my gosh, we all want to get better at what we do. We all want to make, take what we do to be this, not be this weird, obscure thing of just I'm the technical salesperson in the room instead to how do I add some unique value and how do I make my customers happy and successful. And so it's always been what's been driving me in my sales career and to now doing other things like running a podcast around who we are as pre-sales individuals and being better at it that way. Hopping in and volunteering with the PreSales Academy, being a career advisor there for a while. Uh, I love everything we do about getting better as professionals. It's probably it's been the most uplifting part of my entire career up to this point.
I love that, and it's you embody that so well. And the other thing that I love is when you're in like the pre-sales community, it's not just like, okay, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna get better, but you're surrounded by so many people who are in the same boat and have the same viewpoints. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not every person who's doing pre-sales does it that way, but when you start to either make your voice known on LinkedIn or hop into the Pre-Sales Collective Slack or join some networking event, you're surrounded by people who are taking additional time to network, to get to know people, and who all have this shared goal of we're all in this together. I think one of my favorite moments about that was being at a conference, an in-person pre-sales conference earlier this year, and being there, seeing people who definitely compete against each other, but no one cared because we all want to be better professionals at what we do, and we're all willing to support each other. And we don't care if we make someone who's at our competitor better because then they're better at what they do. Like I've never seen such a group that's so willing just to, if they figure something out, I want to share it with the world so you can do it better as well. It's such a fun space.
It absolutely is such a fun space. And kind of on that same vein of kind of doing things differently, getting things better, what inspired you to become a career advisor at Pre-Sales Academy?
Yeah, the when I started in sales, I was very fortunate to be hired by someone who saw beyond what my resume said because I didn't know the technology that I was going to be selling and I didn't have previous sales experience, which even today will often completely disqualify you from being able to get a pre-sales role. But I saw someone who instead said, you know what, I see in you a lot of your background, a lot of what you bring to the table, and I feel like bring all this together, I can teach you how to sell and I can teach you our product. And I think you're going to be great at this. And not everybody who's trying to get into pre-sales has the benefit of a hiring manager who's going to do that. And so instead, that's where when I saw the pre-sales academy and what you guys were doing, like that's exactly taking that mindset of what my first pre-sales manager ever did to me and making it available to everyone who wants to get into pre-sales. And so I wanted to hop in because since someone took a chance on me, I want to help and take a chance on somebody else, help someone else get that chance that I got. And it's been very, very rewarding. And I mean, the students that you have going through the PSA are fantastic. They want to learn. They want to get better. They get the training that took me a few years to get. They're getting out of the gate there. And so it's just fun to see them coming from a space of not even knowing really probably what a discovery meeting is supposed to be and effectively running discovery and then turning that into what a demo looks like. I've learned a lot about the way that I even demo from my time that I've spent with either coaching or mentoring PSA students as well.
I absolutely love that, and it's oh man, it's so true. I look at some of the students going through, and I'm like, if I had started where they are starting, I don't even know where I would be today.
Yeah, I mean,
So I love that call
I
out.
wouldn't have had the failures that I had in my early demos. If I had started with their knowledge, I wouldn't have been wiggling my mouse around the screen like crazy in that first demo. I wouldn't have been sticking to my script and not ever looking up and not taking a breath until the end and going, I'm done. I think was how I ended my first demo. So
Well, I
yeah,
think
I mean,
I have moments like that too. That's wonderful. And again, I love that you have kind of been a part of that journey and seeing that growth and being a part of that, again, that accelerated growth for students. And I'm curious if there's any moments that have stuck out for you as memorable or any student stories that you've worked with that you think they've had incredible success, things that seem that stick out for you.
yeah. There's one student that sticks out of my mind. I think it was actually the first student that I ever um uh was I he was my first mentor? I think it was the first student I mentored. He when we spent the first session going through his, resume, looking at his LinkedIn, talking through everything, and I noticed that he was really struggling getting people to even pay attention to him. But I looked at his background and heard him talking about it. He was leaving so much of his past work experience off of his resume because he thought, well, that's not really relevant to what I do. But we started to break down, wait, that shows leadership, that shows thinking differently, that shows taking some initiative. And so being able to encourage him and how he could work that into his resume, into his talk track, and then getting him to the point where not only did he get a pre-sales role, he got a senior SE role as his role that he landed right out of the gate because they saw in him that same leadership stuff in his past that he didn't think was relevant. And so that was a huge, huge moment just to see, hey, obviously he did the work. I didn't do anything. Like he definitely did the work to get the role, but still sticks in my mind as one of my kind of most excited moments for any of the students I've worked with.
I love that. And I love that moment where they do get the job, but also when they get like, oh, this isn't just about this role. This is about all the knowledge that I've had, and this relates because of this reason, and this relates because of that reason. I love that as a call out there. Now,
Yeah, I mean,
in
so many new people breaking in. I mean, you can almost copy and paste that across every student I've talked to. They want to know, what certifications do I go out and get? It's like, yeah, sure, get a certification, but what about you is unique? I mean, there's so many people, like for example, there's so many teachers who are wanting to breaking into pre-sales, and I mean, pre-sales is a lot about taking obscure concepts and help people understand why they should need to understand them and what they really mean. That's what teachers do every day. They do it to just less mature humans, sometimes more mature, but often less mature humans
debatable.
in their teaching. And so it's such a transferable skill in helping a lot of the students I've coached, mentored, and even ones who just reached out to me on the side realize, no, you've got a lot in your background. Bring that with you. That's why someone's going to hire you, not because of, you know, you can go through and answer their questions correctly.
Yeah. And when you talk to students about those skills, like what are the important skills or what's the important mindset that students need to succeed when they're going into a pre-sales profession?
I think the biggest skill, if you have got nothing else to rest on, you've never done it before, you've never been through sales in any way, or you don't really necessarily maybe have the product information, uh, a company will hire you because of your intense curiosity and your ability to learn and be coachable. And that sometimes, you know, is a trait that they can't teach. You can have someone who's been in the industry for 15 years, has been selling for just as long, and they're not an intensely curious person. Well, guess what? The industry is guaranteed changing. AI has changed every industry in the past couple of years and will continue to do so. Other things are going to come along to shake up industries. And the SCs who right now are succeeding are those who weren't stagnant with what they've known, but were curious about what was changing, wanting to learn it, wanting to dive in. And that's what a lot of smart companies are starting to value, is that intense curiosity around, how do I learn? What don't I know? How can I figure it out?
It's that's so true. I love that. Now, Jack, you have come back many times to be a career advisor at PSA. So I'm curious, what's been the most rewarding part of being a career advisor? It's basically, why do you keep coming back?
I can't stay away, I think, is the main thing. I mean, on one side, you could say I come back because I hear we need more people, and I'm like, well, I have to, I got to do it. Like I said, for me, it's a big piece of giving back towards that chance that I got earlier in my career. But also, I always meet some incredible people every time I go through and be a career advisor, whether that's directly with the students who I'm assigned as a coach or a mentor, or anyone else in the cohort who I happen to connect with either through some other panel. These are people that are amazing to have in my network, because these are people who want to be better as pre-sales individuals. And those are the type of people that I want to be associated with. Those are the types of people that, even though they're not going to be able to offer me a job, right? At least not right now. I don't know. Maybe in 3 or 4 years, maybe they will be. I'm not getting anything directly out of it, other than these are the people I want to associate myself with. These are the people that I guarantee you in a couple of years, I'm going to be able to learn from a little bit. They're going to have insights that I haven't seen. In fact, that's already happened a couple times. I remember talking to a couple people, or having a conversation with someone uh, from one of the cohorts, and just really having them challenge the way that I think about the current state of buyers, because they're coming from a much different mindset of, the post 2020 buyer, and they're seeing this for the first time. Whereas, most of my sales career was pre 2020. And so I don't have the current buyer mindset like they do. And so, you know, uh, even though I'm coaching or giving advice or helping them to be ready for that job they're trying to land, they're helping me to think about what I've been doing and making sure that, are there new thoughts or new ideas? And it's incredibly rewarding for me from that perspective as well.
I love that perspective because I'm also of the mind you can learn new things regardless of, who you're talking to. Someone could be in the role for, 30 years, or they could be in the role for 30 days. And you can still learn something, whether it's the perspective, whether it's about a different industry. So I love that you've kind of taken something away from some of the students that you've coached and mentored.
Yeah, I mean, every conversation that you have with everybody, you can either hear yourself talk, or you can be quiet and listen and learn something. So even when I'm in a position where someone's expecting to learn from me, well, is there anything I could learn? Is there anything that I could take away from the conversation? And that's happened more often than not with the pre-sales academy cohorts, because I mean, they're taking a big risk. They're making big career changes. They're people who have got ideas about where they want to go, and they're usually pretty smart because they're trying to be in pre-sales. That's a pretty smart job choice. Job choice. And so the ability to take stuff away from those conversations is usually pretty high.
Love that. And one of the things I've always learned from you, you give incredible mentorship, you give incredible guidance. I'm curious, how do you approach uh, kind of what that mentorship looks like for students? Are there specific strategies or advice that you consistently are able to give?
The mentorships, I think, are one of the trickiest roles to have. Um, it's actually interesting because it's listed as like the least amount of time commitment, and I suppose from a strict time commitment it is. But I feel like from an emotional investment, it's probably one of the more difficult roles, because you're engaging with students at the end of their time in the academy, and they're now facing, great, I've learned all this. How the heck do I get a job? How do I present myself? You see a lot of imposter syndrome starting to happen. You see a lot of people feel like, you know what? It doesn't matter that I went through this. I don't have anywhere near the experience I'm going to need for this. No one's going to take me seriously. And so for me, it's a lot of having to spend time with people, not not in a like counseling type of perspective, but from a no, you can do this. There's value you can still add. Let's set up time in 2 weeks to go through it again, and let's do a practice on it. Why would someone want to hire you again? And just reminding them that they've got that value that they can bring into that situation when often they're at the end going, I don't know anymore, and I'm not sure now that the rubber's going to meet the road. I don't know if I'm sure that I can do it. And so I don't remember exactly what the question was, but it was something or that, something down
Talking
this
about
road, this
mentorship
path.
and guidance, but I think that also goes really well into my next question, which is how do you support students in overcoming any challenges they might face in their career transition?
Uh, there's not really an easy is I think the biggest thing I have to remind students. There's not an easy way. Even when you're mid career, even when you're, well qualified for the job, there's not an easy. There will never be an easy. You can get lucky, that can happen, but if you are counting on that, it probably is not going to happen. And so you have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to take the advice of those around you seriously. I unfortunately did have, someone that I think it was someone I was coaching who just was really unwilling to kind of accept some of the advice that I was seeing them given around, from me and from others as well, around really how to approach the job search. And it's like, well, there's really nothing I can do at that point because you, the advice we're giving is difficult if you want to go through it. You got to do the work to improve your presentation skills, to do the work to build refine your search down to an industry you want to go for, do the networking to try and actually make the inroads there. If the only thing you ever want to do is go out there and put your resume everywhere, even though everyone says stop doing that, you're not going to have the results that you want to see. And I think um, that's I think one of the more difficult parts is when uh, someone's not willing to do the work. But if they are, and if they are willing to do it, if they're willing to say, okay, three people have now told me that I'm being too broad. How do I get more narrow? Or, I talked to like I know a lot of students will come and talk to me about one-on-one conversations they have with Nina or with Winnie or someone to just get a little bit more assistance or a little bit more help around, um, you know, how to approach their resume or how to approach rewriting it or making it specific. And it's a lot of work. They're like, oh, I got to go through it again. I got another set of revisions to make. But if you're willing to do it, it's going to show some difference. And that's really that's really the difference between what's going to be successful and what's not for a lot of students. And I think that's the hardest part, I think, for me when it comes to that is when I start to see that unwillingness to engage, how do I trying to get them to understand if you start to engage, it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off if they're willing to do it.
It's definitely not always the easy road, but I think something that you highlight is like the willingness to take in feedback and kind of look internally, okay, what does this mean? What do I need to do? What work do I need to put in? Well, guess what also makes a successful like pre-sales professional is also
Mhm.
hearing folks' feedback, working that continuous improvement, putting in the like lots of work around what technical challenges do you have, how to give better presentations, how to make something easier to understand, how do you make something more intriguing. All of that takes a lot of work.
Yeah. It, it's a lot of work, but at the same time, if you feel like you're gonna be able to get a pre-sales job without putting in the work, that type of work before the job, that's a lot of the work in our role as well, right? The research that you have to do, tailoring your message to every single person you're going to be talking to, not just getting up there because you can try to be an SC and just give the same presentation and demonstration every time. You're going to see the same level of success as you would be trying to get a job.
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit of, yes, you're doing this now, but you're also learning that you're going to have to be doing this for your career. Like being a good or being a great SC is about this meeting coming up. Here's the topic. Here's what I need to present. Here's how we collaborate on making this unique, which is no different from, here's a company I'm interested in. tailoring my resume, doing the networking, doing the customization to present myself to the people I'm going to be talking to. It's very much analogous. It's very much analogous to what the role ends up being.
I agree, and maybe I'm weird for saying this, but I enjoy solving those problems, and maybe that's what hooked me on pre-sales.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's whenever I see someone like, you know what, you would be good at pre-sales, it's someone who enjoys not like putting out fires, but more of enjoys seeing a puzzle and then figuring out how to solve the puzzle for not like a here's something that needs fixing, but I need to talk to someone and help them to understand why X, Y, or Z makes sense. And someone who can do that effectively and can communicate in that way and tailor the message right is someone I'm like, you know what, you should look at this weird thing that I do because it seems like you might do well at it.
100%. Now you've worked with a lot of folks who've gone through Pre-Sales Academy. I am curious, Jack, is there a particular time where you felt you know particularly proud about a student's progress or success?
I mean, I mentioned one before already, but yes, I do recall there was one student who I was mentoring, and he had already been well down the path. He actually I think he reached out to me like real just before the deadline of doing the of doing the and like I'm not sure why the delay. I didn't want to bug him too much. He reached out to me just before the deadline and we just got the stuff the interview the mock interview done in time and he did great with that. But then most of our back and forth happened well after he was through the pre-sales academy stuff. And it was mostly because he was running into roadblocks with not getting even to the first round of interviews.
Mhm.
And so what was cool is I was very at first I can say I was a little bit nervous that everything I was said was going to fall on deaf ears, nothing was going to happen, but every piece of advice that I gave, he was like, "Okay." And then he did it and he would send me a Slack message, "Here, took your advice and I built this. What do you think?" And there were many times when I took it and I'm like, "No, that's not quite right." But he would say, "Great." He'd take it away and okay, now this. What do you think? Every piece of advice I gave, he was willing to take, listen to, consider, and he was even seeking others' advice as well, so not just me, to really have a best thing, right? And so, it's weird to say like it took a long time for us to get him to the point where he figured out what his industry wanted to go after. He had a good understanding of how to present himself and the messaging and how to do the networking properly. But every step along the way, he was open to that advice. And that was really cool because you don't always get that. You usually get with these types of kind of mentor relationships, one or two conversations, and then someone's like, you know what, I think I've got it. I'm good from here. But this was very much one of those. He was very willing to continue to engage, to continue to ask for advice of mine and others as well. And I think as of right now, I think he's still on the verge of landing that role, but he's getting some really, really good interviews at this point. And so I think it's just a matter of time right now.
I mean, there's a lot of folks I've seen such incredible growth and like they're at the finish line and I know good things are about to happen for them. So I think keeping those good vibes out there
Yep.
is important. And then, obviously it doesn't necessarily you don't have to get something right away. You can get I love that place. It took a little bit, but the growth that that person is going to see afterwards could be even more than the person who would have taken the feedback right away.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what's the phrase? It's like something learned through toil, like that sticks better. There's a phrase, there's a proverb, so to speak, about it that's like something that you learn easily, something that you pick up on easily, you're not going to actually retain, but
Mhm.
something you have to struggle for is something you're going to learn more. I think there's actually a study I remember reading about in a book about the like a this study between two different math teachers at a university. One math teacher was always highly rated, viewed as the top math teacher. Students love them, love their courses, and there's another one that wasn't. But when you looked at the success of the students from each class as they progressed into harder math classes throughout the university career, the ones who'd gone through the teacher that no one liked actually did far, far better than the ones who had the professor everyone loved. The reason why no one loved this as a professor is because he made them work for it. He made them figure out why the principles were the way they were. And no one liked that. Everyone liked that the easy professor just told everyone what the answers were and they would just memorize the answers. And so I feel like it's that same principle. When you've gone through and you've actually worked at your presentation skills, your resume skills, you've gone and refined it, you've gone through over and over and over again, it's going to stick with you. And so it's fun seeing that in students as well when they go through and they're putting through the work. They might get a 20% grade that first time they do their demo, and the next time they get a 60%, but they're going to come back and they're going to nail it the third time. Like that's going to
Mhm.
stick with. That's fun to see too.
And what a great kind of story to end our conversation on. Just, it's that continuous improvement. It's that working towards something because that's really where you're going to see that long-term success. I've definitely seen that in my experience as well. Well, Jack,
Yeah,
first of all, thank you so much for all the time and energy that you spend with Pre-Sales Academy, with advising students. Pre-Sales Academy would definitely not be the same without you and your experience and your expertise as a part of it. Thank you so much for sharing some of your insights and wisdom.
absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. And again, happy birthday, Pre-Sales Collective.
Happy birthday, Pre-Sales Collective.